Good morning, this is Dr. Justina Agnieszka Chevalier. This is a part of this book that I wrote that has as an outcome of series of things that a person is encouraged to do, a change of self-perception towards being a good person and change of self-perception towards being actually an effective at such. What I determine that effectiveness at personally, and also I encourage others to consider that is non-based on a feedback from that person in a form of smiles, gratitude, love, or reviews that can at times when present impede that person from becoming healed, fully independent, and by such giving such feedback, because that is part of a romantic relationship, feedback impede personal relationship, and that as compensation in many persons results in people who, in fear of having emotions superior to the person who is non-corresponding corresponds in lesser degree at home or in such an established wanted sexual relationship, who is not quite as effusive or quite emotional in a good way towards self. So for example, we come back home and we have a wife, being a man, and that wife expects and seeks for proofs that man, that you are actually in love with her. So instead of rewards, and you for example are a fireman like this that I just saw, you saw someone in a fire, save that person, and that person in tears says, you are the hero, you are the best person, the lifesaver. I don't know how to express words how much I actually now think that you are the best person in the whole universe. And you see, when that happens often, that in comparison to coming back home and that job translated into, well, volunteering and no paycheck, or having money that is limited, and person who has a often different profession, it becomes not sharing that, and that person expects that the husband, that you are going to provide the same type of an enthusiasm and love to win her over, that you will prove that you actually care for her well-being and care for her as much as the person that you saved from fire or from other place. That is true for doctors, especially for policemen, correctional facility workers, and it is nurses, all of those persons that we work in serving others on death pact, which means instinctively we, as if everybody was own child, parent, or a significant other, depending on which instinct is strongest, nature uses whichever is the strongest, we perform these activities and obtain also often reward from that person's smile and gratitude, and then good reviews in press, etc. And that is good. You see, the danger of that is always that then this is impeded by a perception of that person that to be faithful emotionally to that chosen relationship that at first was in great adoration and then became less, for instance. Before, for instance, one started working or realized that the person you married is, for instance, working in an office and never has is in touch with anyone else, so nobody expresses such gratitude, nor she understands what it feels like saving another person, or how it feels like when such kind of satisfaction occurs as also part of that person's gratitude, or family members. When persons exclaim, oh my gosh, you are a hero, this is incredible, or such article appears in a press, or persons feel, wow, I am so grateful that you took so much effort, that you could have died, and yet you tried to save that person, and even though that person is dead, I know that that person was cared for, even though I was absent. And so this is very emotional, and we coming back home provide at best, unfortunately, a satisfaction from these opinions or articles to that person, as opposed to sense of having love and adoration for that person in reciprocity because that person participated in those activities, or was the one in need. And first one, as I described in this oath, was the one who actually was saved. And with time, that creates an impulse, an instinct that I've seen many times, especially in the United States, of being extremely harsh to persons who need work from you or from me. Extremely harsh meaning in assumption that if one is nice, that will create feedback of enthusiasm and love for you that will exceed aspiring for such love and enthusiasm at home of a person with which we don't share profession, we don't share these activities, who is relatively independent, and with whom that enthusiasm is secondary to opinions of others, and therefore whoever it is that has direct experience of being saved or seeing that work becomes mentally and emotionally superior. I often say many persons, why not then marry a person that is of the same profession? It is a solution, you see, but then, like in that story of those two monsters, work becomes source of a I don't know, my video froze. Excuse me. Work becomes source of mutual lovemaking and good emotions, it, as opposed to any other relationship. And that is insufficient when once, at least, a person at work, one or the other, meets a person who, with whom sexual impulse, sexual desire impedes 100% work, causing that sexual meltdown and in pleasure and meltdown of mental capacities to pursue, urge also to pursue sex as opposed to any other activity and any other person. And so again, and the danger of a basis for own self-worth and perception of goodness from feedback from others, we do not, and that exercise is to prevent, we do not remediate by harshness, offenses, by impersonating that person, by a fake, sometimes warranted in nothing, for self, in fact, assurances that one is not sexually interested a priori when at work, which are okay in social circumstances perhaps when that is doubtful, but at work it is inappropriate to do so. It's offensive to most persons who have their own love life, and it is being boastful, and that's how it comes across. The same as parading, for instance, relationships. In case that relationship is true, there is no need for parading. And in case that other person is immature, for instance, and because of having a less awareness of that drugness mind expansion, and basing love and infatuation on asexual love, while self is mature and basis is sexual mature relationship, that is enough to actually contrast first with all my content as we reviewed, and then make sure that that person actually understands in education what it takes to have superior to self, intense in adoration, sexual in nature, that leads to intimacy and possessive love, wanted one, in reciprocity relationship. And that is also what I planned for in sexual education and started, but not yet done, for youth and children. The idea is, again, do not, as first recommendation prior to explanation what to do in those professional runs, that are self-care. So this is work and life combined, but with emphasis on personal achievements in form of provision of good deeds, to track those in mind every single day, or when meeting with these persons, if one has time combining work, most important, most demanding things, and personal life. And it is for all, not only a medical practitioner or quasi-medical practitioners or affiliated personnel with similar degree of sacrifice at risk. So at risk is death of self or permanent mutilation when performing activities. And so the idea is that the feedback in good deeds, each day we go through persons we provided assistance, we had to provide it and wanted to, being the best, or we provided seeking for it and provided it. Self-seeking provision of attention to help others. And then we go one by these persons that we actually provided something for, and that still depend on us in feedback of needing such a source of self-importance, which is suboptimal, and that means those persons still have need for doing some of these of those exercises. Emancipation in self-perception of importance and own capacity to be able to do the same for others in need, as opposed to contrast it with trying to reject assistance, or contrast it with, for example, impersonating one to humiliate whenever that person actually needs assistance, or whenever relationship could be pleasant, to reduce risk of having emotions that are of personal nature in absence of such opportunities to the sufficient degree. That is very common. It ends in persons trying, for instance, to impersonate me as a physician in formation, and recite to me mini-mental, or recite to me back drugs of some sort, trying to inquire compulsively or in hatred, in search of something wrong with me, to make sure that roles are shifted, especially men, and that this is clear that that person is source of gratefulness for others and for self, and not have me as a competitor. This is wrong, and I am going to explain in that exercise how actually reverse it to the best outcome for all of us, and not have such urge. And the key here is pursuit of effective independence, emancipation of persons that we chose to assist or needed to be assisted, and we had greatest emotional and physical capacity to do so. So each day in your mind, when you wake up, go one by one through all of persons that you have provided such assistance, that is in providing health, providing material or non-material goods, providing also self-esteem and provision of services, advices to that person, that you pursue in your emotional state in which that person is professional and personal, based on sexual maturity and role in a society equal to you, regardless of gender. And that is separated from the first part, the personal runs, called professional runs, and those persons are per se, because of existence of a given partner or resolution of such, either at no chance or at very little chance to pursue, and you as well, maximum in intensity sexual lifelong lasting loving relationship. So roles of those persons are first as a protege and a person who is in fact submissive in admiration to self and gratefulness, and that is occurring based on degree of spontaneous help that you have given in every day, and spontaneous assistance in material and non-material way, and has to include then going through how you feel like, if you still find weakness, and before that person starts to resent, assurance as goal, that the goal is continuity of assistance, so that own harshness to prevent that, or to prevent this rejection, primal rejection of a person, in offensive one, that as a life partner often, or in fear of own emotions, or in fear also of that person's dependence, and becoming that chronic forged, like in Munchausen syndrome, or non-forged need for your love in provision of actually professional services, or pro bono services, or services from which you actually spontaneously form part of the society. So look for full capacitation, equality, and in that personal persons, when that person becomes known, own talents, education, experience, different to your, contrasting, look for admiration and capacity.